Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. My name is Bonnie, and I'm the Poetry Event Coordinator here at Brookline Booksmith. Today, it is my pleasure to host 4 amazing poets, Derek J.G. Williams, Anna V.Q. Ross, Thera Webb, and John Hodgen for our Third Thursday's Poetry Reading Series. Before I do introductions, I do have just a few housekeeping notes. Firstly, copies of these 4 incredible collections of poetry are available for sale at the back counter. I encourage you to support the poets' work in whatever way you can, whether that means buying a book, following them on social media, saying nice things to them while they're here. All wonderful ways of showing support. And being here at the event is no small feat either, so thank you for being here. Secondly, please keep your phones off or on silent while our poets are reading. Please also know that the event is being live streamed at this iPad right here. Hello, YouTube. Our audience shouldn't be visible to the live stream viewers, but if you don't want to be live on YouTube, just don't stand right in front of it and you'll be golden. And finally, we will have a Q&A at the end of the event, followed by a signing. So hold your questions until the end, but definitely have some ready to go. This event is part of a monthly reading series here at Brookline Booksmith it's called Third Thursday's Poetry, and it takes place, you guessed it, on the third Thursday of every month, except for June actually, because the third Thursday of June is Juneteenth, so it will be the fourth Thursday, so don't get confused. That lineup is going to be posted on our website pretty shortly, so feel free to check it out if you want some more poetry in your life. All right, housekeeping done. Now for the fun part, introductions. Derek J.G. Williams is an American writer and the author of Reading Water, selected by Eduardo Corral as the winner of the 2023 Light Scatter Press Prize, as well as Poetry is a Disease from a local press called Gray and Ghost. His poems and prose are published in Pleiades, The Writer's Chronicle, Plume, Banshee, Salamander, Best New Poets, and Prairie Schooner, among others. He earned a doctorate in English and creative writing from Ohio University and an MFA from the University of Massachusetts, Boston. He lives in Zurich with his family. Thank you, Derek, so much for being here. Very long way, I might add. And John Hodgen is a writer in residence at Assumption University in Worcester, Massachusetts, an advisory editor at New Letters at the University of Missouri in Kansas City. He's the author of 5 previous poetry collections: In My Father's House, Bread Without Sorrow, Grace, Heaven and Earth Holding Company, and The Lord of Everywhere. He is also the recipient of numerous honors and awards, including the Grolier Prize, the Chad Walsh Prize, the Collins Prize, a Massachusetts Cultural Council Award in Poetry, and inclusion in the 2017 Scribner's Best American Poetry. Thank you, John, so much for joining us this evening. And Thera Webb is a poet, archivist, and anarchist, She's the author of 1 full-length collection, The Witch, a play, and 2 chapbooks, On the Shoulders of the Bear and Reality Asylum. She is an MFA in Poetry from the University of North Carolina, Greensboro, an MLIS in Cultural Heritage and Archives from Simmons University, and a BA in Gender Studies from the New School for Social Research. She lives in the Cemetery District of Watertown with 1 human, 2 cats, and a lot of books and records, and she enjoys amateur taxidermy, Victorian hair art, and feminist fairy tales. Thank you, Thera, so much for joining us this evening. And last, but certainly not least, Anna V.Q. Ross is the author of 4 collections of poems, most recently Flutter, which won the Benjamin Saltman Poetry Award, the Julia Ward Howe Award. Word award is a lot. Julia Ward Howe Award in Poetry, and was named a Best New Poetry Book by the New York Public Library. Her work has garnered fellowships from the Fulbright Foundation and the Massachusetts Cultural Council, and has appeared in journals including Harvard Review, the Kenyon Review, The Nation, and On the Slowdown podcast. She teaches creative writing at Tufts University and lives with her family in Dorchester, where she raises chickens. We've had Anna at the store before. It is so wonderful to have you back. Thank you for being here. Everyone, this is a really interesting and exciting mix of work. I'm so excited to welcome these poets to the store. Let's give them a warm welcome.
Nice of you to come out. It's pretty scary time. 4 of the magazines that published me over the last couple of years have lost their NEA grants in weeks' time. It's wonderful to think that people want whatever it is that we do. They will be willing to come out and be in a place that's in public, and it took some effort on your part. I just can't thank you enough. It means a lot. This poem is called Spit. Spit on a lion once at the Franklin Park Zoo on an 8th grade field trip. We were hicks at the Peaceable Kingdom. There was nothing better to do. The spittle landed right on his eyelid, and for me, it's hanging there still. He was so old, selfless, never flinching, never looking at me, never moving at all, as if he realized this was his calling, his fate, not the MGM movie lie about the king of the jungle, lord of the pride. His eye was the pyramid eye on an old $1 bill, the all-seeing eye of Providence, Horus, and God. I did it so everyone would think I was funny, not odd, and a really good shot. 2 things that I later turned out to be, and another I most decidedly was not. A decent person, believer in God, though God, leonine, seemed still to believe in me, stealthily, steadfastly standing guard, as if I were lonely Daniel in a darkened den of lions and iniquity, human bones all around, licked clean. Stubborn God. Sometimes I feel like I'm his spitting image, him staring at me, streaming me, as if he's the one all alone, as if he's a hawk and his eye is on me. I'm from the 1900s. I've been around a long time, and I've taught at Assumption for 24 years now, and I love it every day. I love everything I do. But I loved AP teaching high school before that. This poem is called Plague. Taught the plague for 20 years in L'étranger by Albert Camus. To AP students who loved ennui and absolutes. One group in particular who loved the plague so much, they pestered the French teacher, Mademoiselle Courchaine, whom they sang about derisively and on cue, to the tune of Eric Clapton's Cocaine, into teaching it too, La Peste, just so they could read it again, double down, OD on their pain, and who asked me to promise to teach them the worst that we do, not the best, who smoked clove cigarettes, listened to the Smiths, The Cure, and who snapped fingers for what they approved. Nurses, Kafka, Nietzsche, Sartre, who craved for a shimmering moment amidst their daily afternoon art. The calibrated and careful cuttings of their wrists. To be their school's journalists, stigmatists, existentialists, their walking, talking Schindler's Lists. Tempest-tossed, their one-day cafeteria hunger strike for the victims of the Holocaust. Their duct-taped mouths protesting censorship of the school newspaper, they're suspending their disbelief about living forever, who knew we all were the plague, but willed themselves immune each day for 45 minutes or so, inhabiting Oran in the quarantine, who knew both Mama and Merceau, and who built in their Monet hearts an impression, a mini cathedral at Rouen, and loved us all, despite ourselves, and for ourselves, in our ruin. The New Ohio Review is one of the places I mentioned that isn't getting their any funding anymore. But they fell for this poem. They love this poem, and I'm going to run it by you if you want to hear it or not. It's got the biggest title of any poem ever. This is the title all the way down to here. And then the poem starts, and the poem is shorter than the title. Keep your eye out for the inhabitants of this poem. I'm still trying to figure out how they all got in here, but Emily Dickinson in the leadoff spot. And then Sophie from Sophie's Choice. If you've read the book or seen the film, positively stunning, you know what I'm talking about. Is an ESL instructor at Brookline College after World War II who shows up in this poem too for Meryl Streep when she comes back and wants to learn English. There's a classmate who sits next to Meryl Streep, and she doesn't quite get the name right about Emily Dickinson. So when Sophie asks her to say that name for her one more time, she says, Emile Dickens. And it causes all kinds of trouble. And then the next to last person in the poem is the worst librarian ever. And Bob Dylan shows up at the end. All right, are you ready? You need to go to the bathroom.
He would show up.
Yeah, he would, yeah. Poem for Emily Dickinson. Referenced twice in Sophie's Choice. And for Sophie, of course, hounded, tormented on the train platform at Auschwitz by the Nazi SS commandant into deciding which of her 2 children she has to give over, consigned to the gas chambers in order to save the other. How she chooses, as she must, as any of us would, despite what we say, saving one at least from the flames, thinking, cold, so cold, the glaciers, the rivers of our lives suddenly shifting. And for Sophie's nameless ESL instructor at Brookline College after the war, saying at the end of class, soon you will all be speaking English in your sleep. And quoting Emily's poem about death kindly stopping for us. And for Sophie's classmate, whom Sophie asks to tell her the poet's name again, who says, Emile Dickens. But most of all, this poem is not for, is decidedly against the assistant librarian, the shame of all librarians, the condescending, supercilious prig who tells Sophie she must mean Charles Dickens, the 19th century British novelist, that there is no such poet as Emile Dickens, causing Sophie to faint dead away on the library floor. Plead with me, pray, for the real Emile Dickens, unknown novelist, poet, autodidact, that he be found, called from the lost regions of the unimagined dead with all due speed, by acclamation. May he be remembered for saying that truth and death are the same woman disrobing in heaven and also in hell. May he be hailed as laureate, as Sophie's last choice. May his every word be revered, his magnum opus, the chosen one, be rediscovered. Each word a new child with a soup bowl only asking for more. May he know no shame nor dereliction. May his ranks never close. May he have all new clothes. May he be lauded for leaving his bleak house, his hard times, for enduring all of our twists, for exceeding our greatest expectations. May death itself die like John Donne, like bloody Keats, hapless Chuzzlewit or faithful Micawber. May it be that death's heartless heart yearns. May death die in a library sumptuous, vast as Parnassus among copper fields and forests of urns. May he die hearing there's no such author as life, that life is pure fiction, a story, a poem, that he must venture alone into a book depository where presidents and dreams are killed, where everything burns. And may there always be a poet named Emily or Emile waiting at a train station, another train coming in, how it chuffs and begins. How one might glance out a window for just a moment askance to see someone feverishly and forever beating the dickens out of a poem. The way Dylan dropped the lyrics to Subterranean Homesick Blues on oversized hand-lettered cards, with Allen Ginsberg standing in an alley in London outside the Savoy Hotel, where words and worlds coincide with everyone we've ever loved and everyone who's died. Carriages pulling up beside the station outside, hundreds of them, millions on which we can ride. And I'm gonna read a new one. It's my first job in high school. I'm the kid who told his father to go to hell. And then he did, he died a week later. I got a job after school digging graves in Templeton, Massachusetts. And the guy that hired me, the cemetery commissioner and the foreman, the supervisor of the cemetery, this is for him. For Mr. Brown, Templeton Town Cemetery Commissioner and Supervisor of the Pine Grove Cemetery, who gave me my first job digging graves after my father died. You start at the ground level and work your way down, he said, in that sly, wry way he had of addressing others. That deadpan, antiquated, grounded manner of a New England farmer and town official, fully familiar with life and its various ways, how it keeps digging at you, works you down to the bone, just like death with its modus operandi, its mole, always hunting, gathering, collecting its own. Part Robert Frost, part Hamlet's grave-digging fool, always testing and telling, in much the same way he passed judgment on how we had done, Freddie Maz and I, his trusty part-time after-school diggers, when we thought the job was done, the grave finished and measured just right. Sure, we'd pass inspection and get out early for the long walk home in the gathering night. A grave has its footing, its royalties, he said. A grave has its crown like a mitre, an upside-down Pope's hat. You must pay your respects. And then always, the capper, his patented line, you have to work your way down. He taught us more than we ever wanted to know about the assembled family of shovels and tools in the shed. Don't let them get rusty. Keep them clean. Use the small square spade for the topsoil. The first 6 inches, he said, carefully cutting it into squares and setting them aside in the wheelbarrow for the eventual slow replacement, so they would blend right back into place with the other sod, the cemetery lawn. He spoke as if the cemetery were a little town within the town itself, as if each grave were its own little house. Then the rest, he said, not the 6 feet like Boot Hill and Tombstone, and the gravestone that read, "Here lies Lester Moore, 4 slugs with a 44, no less, no more." And we learned, whether we wanted to or not, to be spare with our words, to say only what was needed, nothing more. That extra talk only led to trouble. That was what work was for. Then he died, Mr. Brown, and we learned what irony was for. His life and death become the town's quick joke. His being killed driving out of the cemetery when his truck stalled, as it often did, the choke. His not seeing the Peterbilt 18-wheeler coming up over the rise, no time to stop or swerve, the old okey doke. At least it must have been quick. And we got to dig his grave, Freddie Moss and myself, and we did it right, using all the shovels, the long-handled one with the curved blade like an upside-down pope's hat, the miter it's called, and the root cutters, spades, and the tamp. We dug it 4 feet, then added 2 more nonetheless, because it had to be more to be closer to the earth, to its heart, to its core. We used the plumb line, tightened each corner, and left wanting to do more. We worked our way down. We never said a word. That's what work was for. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Anna. I'm also from the 1900s. And I have also spent quite a bit of time communing with the lions of the Franklin Park Zoo. My son and I spent a lot of time with Christopher the lion, who is sadly no longer with us. But that's a beautiful memory. I'm going to read mostly new poems, but I'll start with 1 or 2 from this book. And yeah, I also want to say that I think the people who are trying to quiet poets and other artists by taking away funding are really naive about poets and artists. Yeah, we don't do this for the money.
No.
Passenger pigeon. I read once that they traveled in flocks as big as hurricanes and as fast. Millions of birds flying so low you almost didn't need a gun to catch one. Just reach an arm up and grab. Too easy. Nuisance birds landing and deflowering a tree or field in minutes, then lolling around, dirtying the ground before the swift, swirling rise toward elsewhere. Who was their passenger? Or is passage the important part, the routes they moved through air? We care so much about who belongs where. Arm ourselves against the imaginary. No one believed they could die out. There were so many. This one begins with an epigraph by the great Polish poet Wisława Szymborska, who wrote through the Second World War, through the occupation of her country by the Stalinist USSR. And she's somebody that I look to for truth. So this is called Wrestling with Gods, and the epigraph reads, "After every war, someone has to tidy up. You are in the small tornado of your own element," my son shouts from the living room couch, instructing his father on their next battle. No, like this. Whack of cushions. I win. Narrative is important. Also the rules. Who decides the terrain, personnel, weapons, size of the tornado? Yesterday, it was cheetah versus tiger, and my abdomen he rammed first with a pillow, then his head, as if trying to reverse the last 7 years. Other days, it's Thor and Loki or Zeus and Apollo. Each time I brace myself into a tripod on my knees, wondering what we're preparing for as he storms across the practical, all-weather upholstery. Today on the kitchen radio, a BBC reporter somewhere near the Syrian border responds, "We understand that this may be a very dynamic war," to a question I didn't hear. I had to train myself to wrestle, learn not to flinch as my son dove toward muscles he once stretched, jabbing from within. We practice our battles already knowing the endings. You be Achilles, and I'll be Thetis, wringing the hand that held her boy's naked tendon as the president's helicopter retreats over the sea. Now in the living room, my son growls and tucks his chin as he becomes a Spinosaurus. My husband turns into a killer octopus, and the BBC moves to a new headline on a different continent. I steady myself against the granite lip of the kitchen sink, its crystals volcanic, all that heat turned element. So I'm going to move to a new project that I've been working on. It's a series of poems, all of which share the same title and first line, and they all have the same last word, which I think you'll just hear as I continue reading them. And that last poem had an octopus in it, so I'm going to continue a little bit on that theme. All my poems used to end in sky, but now they end in sleep, where I might dream of the giant Pacific octopus I once saw at the Seattle Aquarium, rust red fluorescing to electric blue and back, legs hungering at all of us passing by. When I read that a female octopus lives alone her whole life until she mates, then sits guarding her clutch of eggs, not feeding until they hatch, and she, starved, dies, it seemed too easy. My kids next to me, reaching their hands to meet her suckers safely on the other side of glass. I have not died for them, although I would, I tell myself, push them from the path of the careening truck or body block the bullet, but this has not been required. I am not evolutionarily programmed to dwindle to a ragged shape on seafloor, pale and spent outside my den, waiting for a shark to tidy my carcass away. No. But when I hear that an octopus carries 2/3 of her cognition in her arms, arms that can telescope to twice their reach, their slime-covered suckers letting them taste and see whatever they find, I feel yes. Yes, as my kids spread from me now, fingers sticky with lunch, into every crevice of museum, the tide pool touch tank where the hermit crabs might pinch and the sea urchins will draw blood, the underwater dome circled by venomous dogfish, the deep open-air pool where harbor seals hunt and play. An octopus can survive if one of her arms is taken, torn off by predator or accident. Will even grow a new one in its place. But what happens to the touches and thoughts that go with it? Are they the fine first curls and milk teeth long divided from the nursing nerve, kept insensate in a jar atop the dresser? I watch her, wondering if I'm the thing she wants to know and at the same time flee. As she tenses her muscles into horns, then subsides, metaphors within her skin, expanding and contracting to match the color first of a pile of pebbles, next my shirt, and finally a neighboring anemone. But let me not anthropomorphize. I am here, human in the aquarium. My children spreading themselves wide as they can from me, then retracting back for a snack or to report what they've seen. All of us changing shape beneath the watery lights, blurring us into an almost liquid, almost animal sleep. All my poems used to end in sky, but now they end in sleep, a kind of tumbling toward the inevitable. Or maybe that's what I want to believe, like the anonymous woman on the burning Orange Line train last week who jumped from the smoking window of the first car and then 30 feet off the Mystic River Bridge where the train had stopped. I think I'm safer here, she told her would-be rescuers in the Coast Guard boat before she swam to shore and disappeared. Boston's new hero, crowed the headlines the next day, and maybe that's just where we're at right now, America. A woman uncoupling herself from burning steel to dive into a brackish current famed for absorbing heavy metals, petrochemicals, and other bodies, then swimming away without leaving her name. In the video posted on Twitter, her head is a small, dark blot, almost obscured by halos of ripples as the camera pans from too far away to find her face. Boston strong! Probably she was already late for work, people joked in the thread. But maybe she was on her way home, I thought, but didn't say, from the overnight shift, a job she fell into years ago, never meaning to stay until the kids came along and she couldn't afford to pay both rent and a sitter. Now she relies on the jerk and clatter of the Orange Line to lull her back each morning over the bridge towards bed. I was very scared for all of us, she said, before hanging up on the one reporter who tracked her down. I imagined her turning over and pulling up the sheet, erasing herself back to sleep. And I'll just finish with one more of these. A few years ago, I had the opportunity and privilege, really, of teaching at MCI Concord, which has since been shut down because the facility was so poor. But this last poem comes out of that experience. All my poems used to end in sky, but now they end in sleep. Oh, sorry. Got the wrong one started. This is the problem with having poems that start all in the same line. All right, here we go. All my poems used to end in sky, but now they end in sleep, each day blurring post-equinox toward the longest night. The pandemic gave me glasses, is what I tell people and myself, all that Zoom, but really, I'm just old. All the ads on my feed for overpriced sweaters, hyaluronic acid, and orthopedic ankle booties. Readers. I try to wear them the way the woman in the optometrist office demonstrated, perched halfway up the nasal bone so I can look down through them at my phone, student essays on the woman question, or my pores outlandishly clear in the mirror, then raise my eyes to peer, sexy librarian in an 80s hairband video style, over the frames at anything more distant. But I fear that this will give me more forehead wrinkles, and I'll have to click those links to the best skin, abs, ass, neck I've had in years. I'm allowed to wear my glasses when I go in to teach my class at the men's prison. A wedding band, the only other ornament permitted. Wouldn't want to give the guys the wrong idea as we discuss chattel slavery, market capitalism, and Olive Schreiner's theories of the sexuo-economic relation and the parasitic wife. My students all wear jeans or sweats and white t-shirts, all of us doing our best to be drab. Midway through the semester, a student brings in the black lab puppy he's trained to be a service dog for deaf, blind, or autistic kids. He shows me how she can already sit, stay, raise a paw, and lead me away from danger. Tells me the best part is when he gets to meet the families who take the dogs, and the parents thank him for saving their marriages, letting their kids go to school, have friends. Imagine I could do all that, he says. I hand him back his midterm paper on Phyllis Wheatley and a poem he wrote about a man being watched by a department store clerk while he tries to pick a Christmas present for his wife, maybe some earrings or a nice printed scarf. I forgot my glasses today, but it's okay. My prescription's not that strong, so I can still see the Blue Lives Matter pattern on the friendly guard's face gaiter after class as he leads me back through 5 steel doors, past J block, L block, C block, the no man's land beneath the tower's gaze, then 2 sets of barred gates on pneumatic tracks, to the 12-foot hallway with a 6-inch slit in the ceiling, for what purpose I don't ask, and then into the trap, where a second guard searches my pockets and my bag, for what they never say. Then 1 more door to the lobby, where I turn in my visitor's pass to a third guard behind reinforced glass who hands me back my license via a stainless steel drawer before releasing me to the parking lot and the highway's blank exam. I'll try and fail and try again to read the whole drive home, where I'll set my glasses down beside my bed before I go to sleep.
I'm Thera. So I'm going to read some things from my book, The Witch of Play, which is, there we go, not a play, but not a play. A play seems snappier than a series of braided poetic monologues, partially in conversation with each other. So there are chapters, and I'll read a few of the chapters, and there are characters, and you'll get the gist. The Witch of Play. Prologue. The Witch. We use many forms of divination, a knife in the ribs, a glimmer of white, a finger drawing in the frost, stuck with pins and egg cracks. The Atlas of Delight. The Witch. I seek limited contact with the world. I keep mohair at my throat, pin of iron on my breast. The Mother. Even now, I beg you, don't wander past the quiet rows of fir. All the lions there have human faces. The Beast. Tremendous suffering and beauty, I bring to the Atlas of Delight a new river. Your body unsettled above the clouds. You're hung by the heels, a pinnate leaf waving to the water. Resistance towards grief. The Beast. Long life has terrible teeth. Asleep, you yawn the tide to bed. Moon, moon, moan and burst. It is a dusty polyp grown out of my heart. A harp played in the hands of the sun. A song from the bleeding neck of a goat. A small bird falling from a dead tree. The hero. The entire notion of suburbs is emptiness. If only I could put my hand inside my chest, I might, here in my wet feet, my mouth flaps like a red fish. The mother. Now is the time of hunger. The rain globes on the grass cause action inside woody stems of plants. How do we carry this endless resistance we have towards grief? A cloth of scars. The witch. I tried to rend the world apart, to gain a glowing coal, to blot the deep wound of a red weight, but forth it shoots in air, my fragile hands out to trap it. No bones so weak as these. The mother. Life starts as a cloth of scars. Your heart will peel in layers, with no mention of time. The self-miraculous. The hero. However the night unfurls, each morning the light is a cage. The hide of an animal draped on the back of the bleak globe, the creep of muscles crashing towards the beast. Envision me horned or sided with light, a rope tied jute around the twisted tooth, an arrow pointing to heaven, a knitted chain hinges. This hollow cone will see you wrecked before you're gone. A tree mimics itself. The children. It's true, you say, we were raised by wolves, grown heavy in a winter cave. Slow light aches over us. Yellow, tiny yellow flowers bloom and lichen. The witch. The banner of a leaf strays overhead. I have such sweet thoughts to cause the fruit and flowers here to grow and melt golden into the brackish creek, and yet you think me false. The beast. A tree mimics itself above the ground. Cold and golden ghosts, screaming boys on trains. Their bodies pause and bleed astounding light. And then I have a couple of newer poems. Carnivorous plants. Trap-mouthed, the sharp tooth of love catches you by the ankle. Little feet on the dirt path, little hands. In the leaves, there's a quick spring, this one. The breeze doesn't sing, it sickens. And the birds stir dimly in the trees as I walk home in the early morning. Mist rising from gutters, the stamp of a foot beating the rhythm of breath. I count the days before I go bad, stalking the path down to the river where we open our breasts to the sky. A proposal to replace my friends' fathers with myself. This is how I show up. I braid your hair before school and hold your hand as we cross the street. Of course, I am in the front row holding flowers. And yes, I will pick you up at 3 a.m. in the industrial zone and in the rain. And yes, I'll hold you when you're crying on the bathroom floor. I'm baking a birthday cake with your face on it. I'd love to name all the rabbits in the yard after you. Just one more. Sour watermelon. I watch people's children give their mothers a bouquet of pansies. Someone's hands twitch beneath a pile of bombed out rubble. In a cave, glowworms hang above me, in constellations bluer than the city's lights. Rescued cats shiver in their cages before feeding. Below me, multiple people are carving paths inside the earth. I open another door to sorrow, not turning off the phone at night. The light in my window causes dozens of geese to migrate to my room in confusion. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Derek James Gerhardt Williams, and I'm going to say some poems for you. Pavlov's dog. I chase my shadow all morning. The neighbors watch from between drawn curtains. I tear up clumps of lawn until my blood churns how it does when the bell rings. I sit in the sun and pant. Next time, I'll lunge for his throat. But the bell sounds, and I love him still. When I run away, it's to nowhere special. There's a certain slant of moon I seek. It changes the angle of my longing. Hunger is the pain I can't be free of. When I'm sitting in the sun, I love him. I'm never free. I'll lunge for his throat. The neighbors will say, I told you so. This is a funny companion poem to follow with. Dogs, parrots, a dragon. Gertrude Stein had a dog named Basket. That, friends, is poetry. Our banjo is like a novel in progress. His hurricane tail trails a squall that knows no end. I imagine Basket and banjo would be friends. That is not to say I wanted a dog. Growing up, the family parrots, in imitation of my mother, would holler my name from one room to another. Today, I'd give anything to hear my mother's voice yelling for their squawking to stop. So much noise and need. I didn't want someone else to fiercely love and need. But Saskia convinced me, persisting in her tenacious way until we agreed. An hour ago, Banjo ambled beneath my desk. When I bent to pet his back, he first set his chin in my open palm where I held it, and he held me. The delicate way he makes his bed is everything good. Now he's softly snoring on the balcony where the sun has stalled the leaves from their falling. I can no longer pretend that no one I love will ever die. In the game I play pretend, dying 20 times over to the same blue dragon. It's an artless practice. I have a visible health bar. An invisible number measures poise, how many hits I can take before falling, before staggering, before death. Each teaches something new. I decide to get stronger and come back. I meet the wolf man half mad with love, half crazed with loss. I wear his helm and the fur is thick around my ears. I pick flowers for a potion and ride my horse off a cliff. Gertrude Stein would love this shit. We've so much in common with anyone who's chanced to live. There it is. Oh, how are we? Yeah? What a great group of writers. So, I've been traveling. I got here from Switzerland about 2 weeks ago and started with a reading in Boston. I did Connecticut and New York and Philadelphia, and now I'm back here, and this is my last reading before going back home. Home? On Saturday. I know it still sounds very strange to say it. This one's maybe timely. Ellis Hall, room 102. My student thinks professors should be armed. I play dumb, ask, with a gun? Knowing full well what he means. Yes, with a gun or guns. So more than one. Even better, I say. I can't help but like this student, who 3 days a week at 8 a.m. packs a lip and spits into an empty Coke can. On our first day of class, he asked if this was okay, pointing to his lip, pointing to the red iconic label on the table. Yeah, I said, but if you spill it, I'm sure as hell not cleaning up your mess. This student isn't an especially hard worker, but 3 times a week he shows up, and often that's enough. He makes his argument in a half-assed way. I'm only half listening once I see other hands shoot up to rebut or agree with him. I haven't handled a gun since I was a boy. I held it so carefully then, like a glass filled to its lip. A gun is an enchantment, peace entrenched in war. The beauty in it only partially a promise of safety. I don't mention these half-baked ideas. This class, it's not about me. Actually, I'm not really always sure what it's about. But what if guns were hideous or ridiculous looking, I offer, but also, and mostly, who will you trust with your one small life? Little Dickinson gesture at the end. just a smidge. So I've been reading different poems every night, and I like to have a plan and then completely upend it and make different choices. Hence my flipping. It's not planned. More animals. This is called Mammals. A wash at a beach in Scotland killed the male whale. But it was impossible to know for sure the exact cause of its demise. When I tell her, Saskia says he, not it. And she's right, as usual. Unusual was the sheer volume compressed in the stomach of the 20-ton mammal. His stomach. A whale flies no flag, raises no army. Another was found in the Philippines. 88 pounds of plastic cups, bags, and gloves knotted it shut, while an Italian whale held only 48. My right hand holds a can of IPA. I never raise my hand and salute to anyone, to anything. I empty the ends of the can down my throat in one gulp. I don't know where it goes when I throw it out. I see the news each day and know little for certain. Light bends and refracts in water. I think it gets dark when we die, and that's it. I don't find such revelations bleak. A whale is one of many. It lives in a pod, and the twilight between the surface where it breathes and the midnight where it swims. I wish I could dive as deep and live in the bright, quiet dark. Even now, I disappear beneath waves of chatter far into myself. Too much of the time, I want to be left alone. On my favorite beach, the sand sings when you walk across it. At least that's what the locals say. Thoreau Thought the sound was more like the waxing of a table. I think it's like sneakers on hardwood in a game of pickup basketball. I ignore whatever science is behind the noise when I sun myself in summer, feeling only occasionally ashamed. When whales wash up on sand or beach themselves, they're buried in that land. There's little else to do with a mammal so large, so unruly. Okay, I'll read one more, and then we're gonna have a talk over here, so that'll be fun. It will, I swear. I don't know what we're gonna talk about. Yeah, the books are for sale up at the counter up there. If you buy mine, you get a freebie as well. This is a book of nonfiction about how embarrassing it is to be a writer. It is from a local press, as Bonnie said, Gray and Ghost. They've been around like 20 years. They kick all kinds of ass. So, freebie if you buy my book. Come up, and even if you don't buy a book, just talk to us and say hi. We like that, or at least I do. No, I'm not going to do that. It's too long. Sorry. Oh, okay. Yeah, this is good. This is about Mount Auburn Cemetery. Yeah? Okay. And it has an epigraph. The title of the poem is My Mount Auburn. Okay? And the epigraph goes like this. A garden of experiment in the vicinity of Boston, where the dead may repose undisturbed, eternal admonitors to the living. And that's from a picturesque pocket companion through Mount Auburn Cemetery, published in 1839. My Mount Auburn. No cold red peak to summit, but where artists like tourists can walk among the graves, seeking something profound, like the chiming hour of breath to build a ship of truth. The meaning of air is remembrance. Upon departure, it might keep a great love or two, a few friends who never failed to pick up the phone. Today I read some stanzas about the cemetery in this week's New Yorker, resting place for many great writers. The ground, not the magazine. I used to get high on the paths that wind among the monuments, but I could never write stoned. Would never spend on a slab of marble or granite. My name isn't worth that much. Despite the infinite pleasure of running a thumb across glossy marble, I won't have mine chiseled into a false forever. We are fated and doomed to love than absence, like every great romance. Oh, my Mount Auburn, I write you from afar. I never send word.
I would love to invite our poets to our wonderful panelist table over here. That's good. You can also switch the books. It doesn't, or you can sit behind the wall.
How will they know who we are?
All right, beautiful. So just quick tutorial with the mics. You can't have them on all at once, so just flick it up. And it's on. Down, it's on. So we are running a little bit behind schedule, but we do have time for a couple of questions. So does anyone from our audience have anything that they would like to ask our poets? It's okay if you're feeling a little shy.
Yes?
Oh, yeah, go right ahead. Sorry.
How do you know when your poem is done? How do you know when you're done writing your poem?
Teed us up for that one, huh? Someone else wanna go ahead?
When it makes that kind of a noise.
Oh, no, if you're running the speed there, here, take this problem.
This one doesn't seem to work.
Oh.
I've broken the microphone. Okay. So I was just gonna joke that I decided on the last word of my poem. So now every time I get to that word, I just say, oh, okay, I'm finished. But I also think in a larger, more real sense, a poem for me is done when I feel like I don't have anything left to say, right? That I've monkeyed around with it enough, and I have gotten to the point where it's not changing, and so then I have to just put it down. Sometimes I'll then pick it up, a year or two later and realize that I have to fix it. But that happens, I don't know, maybe less than it used to, the longer I've been writing.
I think that, for me at least, I just have to cut the ends off my poem. That became a big solution for a long time, where I would write way too much and then I would just lop off the last stanza. That still works sometimes, but not often enough.
Terrified. I'm curious why you asked that question.
That's a very
The question is for me.
Wow, turn it around.
I'm just curious. Was there a particular reason why you were concerned about how we ended our poems? It's a fascinating question. Do you write? I mean, is that something you do?
Less artistically. So I write non-artistic things. So it's interesting, when it's artful, how do you know when it's done?
I think at some point that's a learning process that takes, for me, years and years and years. I did a graduate school class with a professor who's passed away since, and I hated him. He was just brutal. He would say, mathematically, eliminate 1/3 of your poem. And it was a test to see what you really needed to keep, and there was some worth to it. But he did the math. I mean, it just seemed like an exercise that pleased him in some perverse way, more than anything else. But I think sometimes the poem tells you when to stop. I think sometimes I can feel it talking. I don't think I did that tonight. There's some poems I need to try. I think a lot of it has to do with all the time that you have or don't have. If you're teaching at a prison, your time is kind of dictated to you. If you're becoming someone's father for a while in that lovely, lovely poem, you're pretty busy, and I don't know if you're paying attention to when it's done or not. But if you get as old as I am, and I hope you don't, no, that came out. You were all wrong. You know what I'm trying to say. I've got more time now than I've had before, and I find myself revising a lot more than I used to. So I don't know how to answer your question.
I don't know that there's an answer. My book was originally 20 poems that were completely different that I thought were done, and then I let them sit for 5 years, and I looked at them and I was like, actually, I'm gonna completely cut each one up and put them in a collage style blender, and then what came out was what was done. So who can say? I think it's really a case by case basis, and if something's done at one point in your life, it might not be done if you revisit it later.
Really interesting question, thank you. We do have time for one more. If we have an audience question, yeah, go right ahead.
How often, when you have an idea and start a poem, how much of it is kind of in your mind in advance of where it's going, and how much of it is a process? that you go through with the writing?
I prefer to know nothing. And I want it to be pretty much all process. Like maybe a scrap of language, and then it's like, for me, the writing really happens with I'm not so much into generating, right? Just like editing and editing and editing and editing endlessly. Like, yeah.
So I sometimes start writing thinking I have an idea, and often the poem engages that on some level. But if I don't surprise myself while I'm writing, if it doesn't take me somewhere else as I'm doing it, there's something that has brought me to the page immediately, sort of something in the front of my mind. But if there isn't a swerve somewhere, then the poem isn't really a poem. It's just kind of a meditation or a diary entry. But if whatever has brought me to the page then allows me to kind of, continue into some sort of more interesting or into a realization that I wasn't expecting to have, then I know that I'm onto something. So it's a yes and no. I don't usually sit down completely blank-minded, but there has to be a willingness to just trust myself to go where I need to go.
I think poems, for me at least, they present themselves in various and sundry ways. I think sometimes I'll wake up at 3 in the morning and I've got something in my head. I can't claim any credit for it at all, but I know if I don't get it down, it'll be gone. I'll completely forget it by morning. So I'm skulking around at 3 in the morning. If it's a full moon night, I'm especially alive to that. I don't know why, but that allows me to justify wandering around, finding that 4 squares of light in the kitchen, on the kitchen floor, when you through the window you can see the moon. That gets me writing, and I feel like if you ignore it, if you let it slide, you're risking never writing another poem. I think it's that sacred to me. You better get up and answer that. Other times it just comes. I told my father to go to hell when I was 15. He did it. He died a week later. But I found myself thinking that the story of that and all that it's done is that process. But suddenly I remembered Mr. Brown, that good old man that gave me the job, and I never got to say anything to him. And suddenly that became parallel to saying something to my dad, and this old man who's long dead, and I wanted to say something to him. And I just started to chase that. I knew that joke he made. I use the word joke very loosely. You work your way down. He thought it was clever as all hell. It was kind of annoying. But there was something about digging a grave that to me is like writing a poem. You do have to kind of dig down for what you're really looking for, or what the poem wants you to find, and then get it in as good a shape as you can. Set a goal like you do, starting a poem with a certain word and then ending. I think that's a wonderful idea. It's like a wordle or something, a little challenge for you. But I think there are multi layers of options for how a poem presents itself and how you can pursue it. I knew this really. I would never sit down and just look at a blank screen and say, I'm going to write a poem. That would never happen.
Yeah, I would say I'm a really big fan of erasure poetry and sort of sitting down with like a whole text and being like, what else is hidden in here? So that was a sort of project I worked on during COVID, was a lot of erasure poetry. So I like to do that kind of like editing and like excavation work, or like a poem will like spring fully formed from my head, like it's Athena or something, and there's like no in between. So.
What an interesting work to end on, the excavation of the miracle. Nice contrast. Thank you to our poets for joining us this evening. Thank you to our audience for being here, for sharing this space. Thank you to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Sarah, John, Derek, Anna, it's so wonderful to have you here. Thank you for sharing your work. Let's give one more round of applause. So if you'd like to buy a book, as we mentioned before, you can do it at the counter there. Our poets will be here to sign. And otherwise, thank you all so much for being here. Have a wonderful night. I'll get these out of your way.
Oh yeah, the bogey. I have never heard it make that much.
That was a tough one.
That was brutal.
Unnoticeable.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very sweet of you. Thank you. How was your journey to Trader Joe's?
The long title. That was in New Ohio? Yeah, that's great. Like a recent issue? Oh, okay. I used to edit with them when I was at, because I was at Ohio University with my PhD. So. I know Mark. I've had that conversation with friends before. They say you're feeling down, and then all of a sudden you get like just enough to like keep you going and like work on something else. You know.
Thanks. 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 Any questions?